Welcome to TechNova Podcast.
All right, we're diving into something spectacular this week, a total lunar eclipse. And not just any eclipse, we're talking about a blood moon.
It's really captivating.
These kinds of events, really grab your attention.
I agree.
There's something both eerie and beautiful about seeing the moon, like bathed in that reddish light.
It really is a sight to behold. And what's interesting is how these eclipses highlight the relationship between, well, the Earth, moon, and the sun.
It's a cosmic dance.
Yeah, it's been going on for billions of years.
Before we go too far, can we do a quick level set for our listeners?
Yeah.
When we say total lunar eclipse, what exactly are we talking about?
Absolutely.
I know there are different types, right?
Right. A total lunar eclipse is when the Earth positions itself perfectly between the sun and the moon, and it casts its shadow on the lunar surface.
So the Earth's shadow is what's covering the moon.
Exactly. And there are partial lunar eclipses where the Earth's shadow only covers part of the moon. And then there are penumbral eclipses where the moon passes through the Earth's lighter outer shadow. But a total lunar eclipse, that's when the whole moon is completely covered by the Earth's shadow, or the umbra.
And that's when we get that striking blood moon effect.
Exactly.
I've always been curious about the science behind that.
Yeah.
Why does the moon turn red during an eclipse and not just go dark?
So it's all because of Earth's atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the Earth blocks the sunlight from hitting the moon directly, some sunlight still makes it through the Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, I see.
And it reaches the surface of the moon.
So it's like a shining a flashlight through a colored filter.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
It scatters away most of the colors except for those longer wavelengths like red and orange, and those colors get bent towards the moon.
That's why we see that reddish color.
Yeah, giving it that eerie reddish glow that we call a blood moon.
Wow. So we're seeing all the sunrises and sunsets on Earth, but on the moon? That's incredible. And this week, we get to witness this firsthand.
That's right.
It's happening on the night of March 13th going into the 14th.
Yeah.
Will everyone in the U.S. be able to see it?
Yes, North America will have a front row seat to the whole event. From the moment the moon enters the Earth's penumbra.
That lighter outer shadow.
Yeah, all the way to totality, where we see that blood moon at its peak.
When's the best time to catch this show?
Well, for the U.S., it begins in the early morning, 12:55 a.m. Eastern Time.
Okay.
But keep in mind, this isn't instant.
Right.
It's gradual over a few hours.
So it's not like we're going to miss it if we blink. We can actually enjoy this one.
Exactly. You can really savor it.
I like that.
The moon will move through the penumbra, then the umbra, and that's when it reaches totality.
Okay.
And during totality, that's when you'll want to be looking up.
Right.
Because that's when the moon is completely engulfed in the Earth's shadow.
For how long?
For about 65 minutes.
That's a pretty good amount of time. You can get comfortable, maybe a warm drink, and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Before we move on to other fascinating aspects of these lunar eclipses,
Right.
I just have to say, the fact that we're sitting here talking about something that's going to happen this week with such certainty, it's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
That we can predict these events, years in advance, decades, even centuries. It speaks volumes about science and how much we understand the universe, don't you think?
Yeah, we've definitely come a long way from when people used to be scared of lunar eclipses.
Right. They didn't understand what was happening.
They thought it was a bad omen.
Now we know the celestial mechanics behind these events.
Right. It's all thanks to physics and gravity between the sun, Earth, and the moon.
So we know exactly how they interact with each other.
Yeah, and where they'll be. It's pretty amazing how accurately we can predict these eclipses.
It is amazing. And speaking of predictions, it turns out we're in for a treat over the next few years.
Yeah, that's right.
We're heading into a lunar eclipse bonanza. But before we get into that, I think it would be interesting to explore how these lunar eclipses were seen in the past. Before we understood the science, how did different cultures view these events?
That's a great point. Before we get into future eclipses, let's take a step back in time and explore some of the myths and legends surrounding lunar eclipses.
I like it. Let's do it.
Okay. Lunar eclipses have really captured people's imaginations for centuries, especially before we had modern science.
Right.
These celestial events were seen as mysterious and were interpreted through all kinds of myths and folklore.
I bet. It's easy to imagine how those ancient skywatchers must have felt, seeing the moon suddenly darken and turn red.
Oh, yeah.
It must have seemed like some kind of powerful omen.
Absolutely. And there were so many interpretations.
Oh, I'm sure.
For example, some ancient Chinese cultures thought that a lunar eclipse was caused by a dragon eating the moon.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, and to save the moon, they would make a lot of noise during an eclipse, like banging drums and stuff.
Wow, to scare the dragon away.
Exactly.
That's a pretty wild image. It really shows how important these events were to their understanding of the universe.
Definitely. And I'm sure other cultures had their own interesting stories,
I
right?
think there's some good ones.
In ancient Mesopotamia, lunar eclipses were actually seen as a bad omen for the king.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they thought it was a threat to the king's power.
Really?
So to protect him, they would put a substitute king on the throne during the
A
eclipse.
substitute king. That's crazy.
Yeah, it shows how seriously they took those eclipses.
It wasn't just about interpreting the event. They felt like they had to do something about it.
Right, it was about appeasing the gods or, warding off evil.
It makes sense.
Like in some Native American cultures, eclipses were seen as a time of imbalance or illness, so they would perform ceremonies and rituals to try to restore harmony.
It seems like many cultures had this idea that something was out of balance during an eclipse.
Exactly. The moon, with its regular cycles, represented order and predictability for them.
Right.
So an eclipse, which disrupted that cycle, was a big deal.
I see what you mean.
They had to find a way to explain it or do something about it.
It really shows how far we've come in our understanding of the universe, from those ancient myths to the scientific explanations we have today.
Definitely.
But even knowing all that, there's still a sense of awe when you see an eclipse, don't you think?
Absolutely. Even though we can predict them now and understand the science, there's still something magical about seeing it happen.
It's pretty humbling.
Yeah, it reminds you of just how vast the universe is.
And all the incredible forces out there.
Definitely.
It also connects us to those ancient sky watchers who looked up at the same moon and wondered about it.
Exactly.
Speaking of connecting with the past, we can't talk about lunar eclipses without mentioning Christopher Columbus.
Oh, yes. Columbus and the lunar eclipse, that's a classic story.
It really shows how understanding these events, even back then, could give you an advantage.
Absolutely.
So for those who don't know, Columbus was stranded in Jamaica in 1504.
Right.
He and his crew were desperate for supplies, but the indigenous people weren't really helping. So knowing there was a total lunar eclipse coming, Columbus used that to his advantage.
He was a clever one.
He told the Arawak people that his god was angry with them for not providing food and that he would make the moon disappear.
As a sign of his displeasure.
Right. And then, right on cue, the eclipse started.
And the moon turned red.
Can you imagine what the Arawak people must have thought, seeing their moon vanish right before their eyes?
They must have been terrified.
Oh, I'm sure they were.
They begged Columbus to help them.
To talk to his god.
Yeah, so Columbus pretended to do just that.
Of course he did.
And eventually he told them that his god would forgive them, but only if they gave him supplies.
So as the eclipse ended and the moon came back, the Arawak people were so relieved they gave Columbus everything he wanted.
It's a great story. It shows how, even back then, understanding astronomy could be used to gain power.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many other events throughout history might have been shaped by celestial events.
It's a fascinating thought.
It reminds us that even with all our scientific knowledge, the universe is still full of mysteries.
It definitely is.
Speaking of mysteries,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that we're entering a lunar eclipse bonanza.
Oh, yeah.
What did you mean by that?
So between 2025 and 2030, there are going to be 14 lunar eclipses.
Wow, 14.
And 9 of those will be visible from the U.S.
That's incredible.
We've got the one this week and then another total lunar eclipse in September 2025.
Wait, so 2 total lunar eclipses in 1 year?
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are we talking about just total eclipses, or are there other types too?
There's a mix of total, partial, and even those penumbral eclipses.
Oh, okay.
Like in August 2026, there's a partial eclipse that'll be visible from most of the world.
So no matter where you live, you'll probably have a chance to see at least one of these eclipses.
Exactly, and I really encourage everyone to check them out. Unlike solar eclipses, you don't need any special equipment to see a lunar eclipse.
That's right. You can just watch it with your naked eye.
Exactly. Just find a spot with a clear view of the sky, maybe grab some friends, and enjoy the show.
It's a great reason to get outside.
It is.
And, it's not just about the spectacle. Scientists also use lunar eclipses to study the Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, that's...
I remember reading something about that. Can you tell us more?
Sure. During a total eclipse, the Earth's atmosphere acts like a lens.
Okay.
It bends and filters the sunlight as it passes through.
And scientists can learn something from that.
Yeah. By studying the light that reaches the moon during an eclipse, they can learn about the composition of our atmosphere.
So they're using the moon as a mirror to study our own planet.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And it's not just the atmosphere. They can also use eclipses to study the Earth-Moon system and
Sure.
even look for evidence of exoplanets.
Wow. So these eclipses are more than just beautiful events. They're valuable tools for science, too.
Absolutely. They remind us that we still have so much to learn about the universe.
I love that perspective.
Yeah,
It brings us back to that idea of everything being interconnected.
exactly. And lunar eclipses are a perfect example of that.
It's this amazing alignment of the sun, earth, and moon that creates this event.
Right.
And it reminds us that we're all connected, not just to each other, but to the entire cosmos.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Our actions, our choices, our very existence.
It's all part of a bigger picture.
It really makes you think.
It does.
It makes me think about all the amazing things we haven't discovered yet,
Oh yeah, there's still so much out there.
and all the incredible stories waiting to be told.
It's an exciting time to be alive, and with all these upcoming eclipses, we have so many opportunities to, connect with the universe and our place in it.
I agree. So to our listeners out there, mark your calendars, find the spot with a clear view, and get ready to be amazed by these lunar eclipses.
And as you watch the moon transform, remember that you're capable of transformation too.
Well said.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's wrap up this deep dive with a final thought for our listeners. We've been talking about these eclipses as predictable events, but there's another way to think about them. We've said that we can predict these eclipses super accurately,
Right.
thanks to, celestial mechanics and all that.
Right.
But when you really think about it,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy that they happen at all, isn't it?
I guess I never really thought about it that way.
Well, think about it.
Okay.
For a lunar eclipse, the sun, the earth, and the moon all have to be in a perfectly straight line.
Yeah, they do.
It's like threading a needle, but on a cosmic scale.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And space is so vast, and there are so many objects out there,
Uh-huh.
the odds of that happening seem almost impossible.
You're right. It is a huge coincidence.
Right.
It's the perfect combination of like the size of the sun, the earth, and the moon,
Right.
the distances between them, their orbits. If any of those were even slightly different, we wouldn't see these eclipses.
Exactly. So we have these predictable events that we know are governed by the laws of physics. But there are also these incredible cosmic coincidences.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, what about other events in our lives? Things that seem ordinary.
Hmm.
Could they also have some hidden wonder or improbability to them?
That's an interesting question.
It makes you look at those everyday things, those random events that happen to us,
Yeah.
and wonder if maybe they're not so random after all.
Like maybe there's a bigger plan or something?
Maybe. I mean, think about that saying,
Which one?
life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
We get so caught up in our routines and what we think we should be doing
Uh-huh.
that we miss the magic that's right in front of us.
That's true. We should definitely pay more attention to those little things.
And it's not just about recognizing those moments, it's also about understanding how we got there.
What do you mean?
All the things that had to happen, all the choices that were made,
Right.
for us to be in the exact right place at the right time to experience those amazing things.
I never thought about it like that.
It's like our own personal eclipse.
Huh. A convergence of circumstances that leads to something extraordinary.
Exactly. And it really shows the importance of perspective.
Yeah.
We can focus on the predictable parts of life, the things we think we can control,
Right, the routines and all that.
or we could be open to the wonder, the unexpected, the possibility that there's so much more to life than we realize.
That's a great way to look at it.
And that brings us back to the lunar eclipses.
Okay.
Even though science has explained them,
Yeah,
there's still a sense of mystery and awe when you see it happen.
definitely.
It reminds us that the universe is vast and complex,
Uh-huh.
and that we're always learning and growing.
Hmm.
Absolutely, we should never stop exploring and being curious.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
we want to encourage all of you to embrace that wonder, both in the big things like the universe
Yeah.
and the small things like your everyday life.
Look for those patterns
Appreciate those coincidences.
and keep learning and connecting with the world around you.
You never know. You might just find your own cosmic coincidence along the way.
It could happen.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time, keep looking up.